Good evening. Welcome to our webinar. My name is David Pomeranz. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at the Hebrew Home. I'm joined by Mojdeh Rutigliano, the VP of Nursing, Olivia Cohen from the Activities Department, and Weisbrod from Social Services, Rabbi Noah, and Wendy Steinberg from Communications. We'll do a couple of brief opening remarks, and then we're really going to dedicate the 45 minutes to as many questions as we can get to. You can either click on the icon and put the questions in, or you could text us the questions, and I'll give you that number in just a minute. But Mojdeh, why don't you give us a clinical update of where we stand right now?
So clinical update is we are currently 11 units quarantined. 5 of those units are for direct resident exposure. The other 6 are for staff exposure. So we are maintaining hypervigilance throughout the home. For even non-quarantined units, we are monitoring 100% of the population as always. But on the quarantine units, it's even hyper-vigilant to monitor those residents for any sorts of signs or symptoms. Just from a nursing aspect, to give you an update, staffing continues to be a challenge as we see that some of our workforce actually, calling out a little bit more frequently as a result of either their family, their loved ones. Some of it is fear, I believe. Some of it is childcare issues. Some people are not feeling so well, but I can certainly tell you that some of the staff that actually were positive and were quarantined at home for a period of time are now back to work. They're feeling good, they're recovering, and they're taking care of your loved ones.
Hey, Olivia, from a activity standpoint, could you give people a sense of what's going on the floors this week in general?
So we are still continuing to have our programs broadcasted onto the neighborhood TVs and in resident rooms. We are continuing to do strolling programs on the neighborhood and also hallway programs on the full neighborhood as well. If anyone would like to follow along in real time to see what schedules we have available, you can email me at olivia.cohen@hebrewhome.org. Again, that's for our Sagely family app, and you can email me at olivia.cohen@hebrewhome.org.
And Olivia, you're starting a new program for the residents. Maybe you could share that with the families.
Sure. So we are starting a new program, a new broadcasted program that will take place every morning at 10:30 in an effort to reduce the amount of news that is happening on all the other channels. This is a way to keep the residents connected to what's going on at the home. We'll have different guest hosts and also different staff that will be interviewing and possibly residents as well, as a way to keep our residents connected, similarly to how we keep you guys connected through these webinars.
And also to make sure that the TVs are turned off of the news of the day, which we're trying very hard to discourage people from watching large bulks of news coverage. The news is obviously quite grim for everybody, and we'd rather focus our attention on things which are positive. So looking forward to your program, Olivia. The text number, if you've got text questions, is 646-341-3096, 646-341-3096. Again, we'll get to text questions on the, you're clicking on the app, and questions that have been already emailed to us. But Anne, why don't you tell us what's going on from a social service perspective?
Sure. So good evening. Our social workers continue to go to the various neighborhoods, visiting with the residents, trying to provide a lot of emotional support. We're fielding a ton of calls from families. We encourage you to call. We know that it's hard not seeing your loved ones, but we encourage phone calls, and we're here to help in any way possible, and also to help with the FaceTime calls when the courts are not quarantined.
Rabbi Noah, maybe just share a little bit of what's going on in your week and what's going on perhaps with Passover.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Passover is going to be starting tomorrow evening. So we've been working on getting prepared for that, making sure to coordinate with a lot of people, and been fielding a lot of your questions and concerns regarding residents being able to get kosher Passover food, getting Seder plates and traditional Seder food, and trying to field any other Passover related questions. So that's kind of what's going on. We had a question earlier about we're going to be having a Seder broadcast on our in-house TV, Channel 8, and that's going to be at 6:15 tomorrow. and also Thursday. So it'll be broadcast 6:15, and then residents will be getting also things for Seders if they're interested in that.
For those of you that Passover is important, I can assure you that Rabbi Noah is going to tremendous lengths to make sure that it's as authentic experience it can be during the unbelievably challenging times that it is. He's visiting people individually. He's gone to great trouble to make sure there's Seder plates for everybody. And Rabbi, thank you for doing what you can to make it as festive as an unfestive time can be. Wendy Steinberg is here from Communications. Wendy, maybe you could share some of the strategies you're using. People might be interested to know how we're informing our board of directors, how we're informing our staff of what's going on.
Sure. Good evening, and thanks so much for joining the webinar with us tonight. Communications has been really critical throughout this whole challenging time. Our leadership felt it was crucial to have full transparency and provide families and staff and our board with updates as frequently as needed, so that everything that we could share with you, we were doing. So I hope that our emails have been helpful in giving you some reassurance that we're keeping you in the loop and keeping you up to date as best that we can. That definitely is our goal. One thing that we have been putting on our emails that hopefully you took note of is our request, if you have any messages of gratitude that you would like to share with our staff. It's really greatly appreciated. It really inspires the staff, and they love to hear your kind words. So if you have time to take a moment just to shoot me an email at heroes@hebrahome.org and share your messages of gratitude, it would go a really long way. Our staff is working tirelessly, as you know, for your loved ones. So if you could do that, that would be great. And again, we'll keep the communications continuous, so that you're as up to date as possible.
Again, just to note, there are various different types of communication, as we're alluding to. As much as you're seeing something each day, hopefully in your email, staff are seeing frequent emails during the course of the day, because anytime there's anything that transpires of somebody testing positive or staff being out for some reason, it's being communicated in real time to staff. So there's really endless communication going on, and it's really the only way we can choose to deal with this. We have to be transparent. We have to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. It's just too complicated, too stressful a time, and it's a strategy I think that's worked well for us. I'm just going to spend a minute before we get to the questions on testing, because I already see it's on a few of the questions, and testing is something that comes up in every webinar that we've done since we started this. Wendy conceived of this. I don't know if this is 4 weeks now or 3 weeks, but testing comes up frequently, and our views personally, which are really not apropos, but just so you know, we are strong believers personally in testing. We think testing would be a wonderful way to prevent people who are asymptomatic from spreading residents, from spreading to other residents, but there is no provision for testing in our environment. We're overseen by the Department of Health. The Department of Health does not recognize or authorize us to do any testing of any type. Mojdeh, maybe you could explain what you have to go through and how that works with getting approval or not approval from the state.
Yes, so originally when this actually first started, the guidance was you have to contact the Department of Health and they would identify whether or not to test. There's a series of other tests that need to be had first, including flu swabs, any sort of additional viral panels, chest x-ray for possible pneumonia. However, about 3 weeks ago, mid-March, the Department of Health actually came out with a guideline for our setting that identified that we were not to test any longer. Once all the definitive tests had been completed and there was no diagnostic test that identified what exactly was it, flu, another virus, then we were to presume that people that were symptomatic with the same types of symptoms were really suspected cases or presumed positive. So they do not allow testing in our setting at all.
So, you'll hear on television, perhaps some of the politicians talk about testing is plentiful, and not to be political, but people will say, it's apparent everywhere. It's not. we don't have access to it. We can't get swabs. They don't want it done. So there is no testing available to us here. The only time you'll hear of us talking about positive results, there'll be when a staff member goes to their own doctor and their own site and gets a test and tells us about it, or a resident leaves our facility to go to the hospital and the hospital will test and we'll hear about it from that standpoint. Other than that, there's no testing originating from here at all. But the questions are fast and furious about testing, so we thought we would address it up front. So the only other piece of testing that I want to hit, Mojdeh, is when somebody's on the recovery unit and they were leaving the recovery unit, one of the questions was, would we do 2 tests to confirm? Maybe you can walk through that's a different wrinkle.
Yes, actually, we are able to test on the back end once there is a positive COVID test done in the hospital. Actually, once that is definitive, we do 2 swabs to really prove that they're negative and the virus is clear before we can actually take them off of isolation or quarantine.
Okay, so now we're going to get to some of your questions. Again, we'll spend the next bit of time just addressing questions. You can either text them, the number I gave you, or you can click on the app and send them in that way. But let's start with one that was emailed earlier today. Maybe Andy will take this. Will FedEx or UPS packages be delivered to quarantine floors?
So the answer is we can accept packages if it comes via Amazon or FedEx or UPS or any of those outside companies. What we cannot accept is packages left at the front gate with the expectation that they will be brought in by the staff. But yes, you can send a package, FedEx or Amazon or whatever.
Okay. You previously mentioned sending positive residents home. How is that decision made and how does that work? So Mojdeh, if somebody was going to be positive and go home, could you walk through how that would take place?
Yes, actually, if somebody was positive and they were going to discharge directly to the community, if their 14-day quarantine period is up, they are no longer symptomatic and they are really fever-free for a minimum of 72 hours, then we can discharge home. The swabs that we just talked about before was really if we are going to be moving them out of a COVID recovery unit into a population where we don't have any definitively COVID positive people.
Again, the questions can be texted 646-341-3096, 646-341-3096. Olivia, you want to read the next question on the board?
Somebody asking if we can list the units to date.
Yes, there are 11 quarantine units to date, and they include GP2, GP3, SP2, SP3, JR1, JR4, RP2, RP4, RP5, RP6, and RP7.
Next question.
Will the residents moving from GP3 to RP4 be provided with masks as they are being transported?
So maybe we'll take a step back and explain, Ann, what's going on with that move, and then we can answer that question about the masks.
So GP3 is going to become a COVID recovery unit. So those residents who are presently living on GP3 are going to be relocated as a community, as a full floor, with the staff that they know and have been taking care of them over to RP4, which is the resident pavilion. So they will all be going together. Families have been notified. They've been given all the new room numbers so that GP3 can then become the COVID recovery unit, just to make sure that you know that RP4, the floor they're moving to, will of course be sanitized very thoroughly and completely before any moves take place. And those moves are taking place between tomorrow and Thursday.
So just on the cleaning, we brought in we've been doing a serious amount of cleaning since it started. We had then upped it to an additional set of resources, an additional company to come in to provide additional cleaning services to our facilities and to our rooms. We then went another step on Sunday and hired an expert company in bio cleaning. They do electromagnetic cleaning services where they spray. It's all non-toxic and safe, but it's very comprehensive. It involves misting and spraying into nooks and crannies of spaces. It's quite extensive, and we began that on Sunday. What Ann's alluding to is that kind of cleaning is going on everywhere now, and certainly when we're changing rooms of people, it's a very thorough cleaning. It kills all of the bacteria, and it's part of the new world we're in to try and eradicate as much as this virus particle as we can. In terms of the movement of the patients, do you want to talk about how we're doing that in terms of the ambulance and so forth?
Sure. In the GP3 residents are going to be moving to RP4. The RP4 floor is presently a short-term rehab floor. We are moving the residents on RP4 who we presume to be COVID positive based on what Mojdeh explained. We're going to be moving them to GP3. We're actually going to be utilizing ambulance service to relocate them from one end of the facility to the other so that they're going on the outside of the perimeter of the building, not being carried through the buildings as to infect anybody. And that's when the sanitizing will be done for the new residents coming in. The residents on RP4 who are going to be staying to continue their short-term rehab, who are not presumed to be COVID positive, are being moved to other rooms throughout the facility.
Next question.
Are the residents on quarantine floors able to leave their rooms?
Absolutely. The only people that actually are quarantined in their rooms on any quarantine unit are those that are truly symptomatic. Then they are quarantined in their rooms. However, the rest of the people that are not symptomatic, while we maintain physical distancing from each other, yes, they are certainly allowed to leave their room and encouraged to do so.
Next question.
Please describe a day in the life of a patient on a lockdown/quarantine floor.
It's a day like any other. We get everybody up for breakfast. We do morning care. They have breakfast. Some people have breakfast in bed. Some people are in the dining rooms, but one to a table. So it's not like communal dining. They have space in between them. They are entertained with activities in the hallways. There are broadcasts on our broadcast stations of various things to entertain them. They have lunch. There's more entertainment as well as dinner time. They lounge around. They do whatever they like in their rooms in their free time. Some people like to read. Some people like to watch their own TVs, and we get them ready for bed and they go to bed, and we do it all over again the next day.
So Mojdeh, maybe you could spend a moment to talk about the quality of life checks that your managers are doing and how you look at this patient by patient and not in groups of large numbers.
Yes, we have just instituted very recently a real quality of life check by the managers that are responsible for their own population of residents. So really every single week, twice a week really, they are going around through every single one of their residents, eyeballing them, assessing them, identifying that, yes, they are being groomed, they're being bathed, they're wanting to come out of their bed, and we're getting them out of bed, they're participating in the activities that we have, they're eating well, and really their overall general quality of life.
So what that is that is not the basic element of care that goes on. That is twice a week, a triple check of what goes on. So just so you understand that, twice a week, every manager, not just the regular floor staff, every manager has to go person by person to make sure that all things are being addressed. Because we really look at this environment of care on a one-to-one basis. It's just with the current climate we're in, with such tremendous stress and dramatic changes, we felt we wanted to have another layer just to make sure. The quality of life of the residents, not just their physical safety, not just taking meds and pills, but making sure that every aspect of their life, whether it be grooming, whether it be something they're enjoying doing, is a focus of attention on a managerial level. Speaking of managerial level, we've now added, we have a senior management person on each shift all the time. So where you normally wouldn't have a manager outside of the nursing department on the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, we've added a senior management person to be part of that shift every day of the week. So that's a change. And then you have the executive senior management staff who are on staff 7 days a week. So we really have brought all the resources to bear. We have staff that are really working incredibly hard and loyally to make sure your loved ones get the kind of care that they deserve and they need, and hopefully that you feel comfortable that you can and trust that these details and these moments are cared for very individually. Next question.
Somebody's asking for the number for the front desk on RP7.
It's 1470.
How are the residents on RP7 doing? Has any resident on that floor tested positive?
We, again, do not test. The residents in RP7 are doing really, really well. There are a couple people that I'm keeping my eye on, but nothing really to alarm me at this point.
I'm waiting for a question.
Is there a separate entrance for staff to go to the new dedicated COVID unit? There is a separate entrance for residents to enter the COVID unit. However, there is not a separate entrance per se for the staff to go. So they actually, when they go in, prior to actually giving direct patient care, they're obviously putting on all the required personal protective equipment when they're providing direct patient care. When they're completed with that, they take all of that off, wash their hands. So there is no separate entrance for the staff.
Are the residents wearing masks on the quarantine floors?
They're only wearing masks on the quarantine floors if they are symptomatic. If they're not symptomatic, the residents are not wearing masks.
Okay, so modern technology, I had to step out to have the load of the text that you're sending, because evidently this room is not working terribly well for Wi-Fi today. So let's get into some of these questions. Will FaceTime visits be able to be made on quarantine units at any point in the future?
Yeah, as soon as the floors open up. For example, JR4 had opened up for a short time. We resumed our FaceTime calls, and then once it was back on quarantine, we suspended them. So as soon as floors open up.
Questions, can you please alert the screen to enable us to better see the people in the room and reduce the text? That would not be a popular choice. I'm not even sure if it could happen, but we're not going to find out. The question, that's a no. But on a more serious note, not familiar with the initials used to designate locations. So Mojdeh, maybe you can just walk through when you give the initials what those mean.
I can just tell you, if I say RP, it's Resnick Pavilion. If I say JR, it's Jacob Rangel Pavilion. If I say GP, it is Gilbert Pavilion. And if I say SP, it's Stoltz Pavilion.
Could you send the link to sign up for FaceTime calls with residents and people on the call, please? I could not find it on the website.
You can send myself an email and I can forward it from there. So my email is olivia.cohen@heberhome.org.
Okay. Why is RP5 quarantine? Is it flu or COVID-19? Mojdeh?
So we had a positive flu. It was quarantined for flu. And then I found out that there was a staff that had tested positive. So I needed to really extend that into a quarantine per se. So we're watching RP5 for that. But the floor right now is doing well.
Are packages being received and delivered promptly to the residents? And can water bottles be sent? Ann?
So as soon as the package is brought into material management, and material management either delivers them directly to the resident, depending on the name and room number on the package. Sometimes it comes to social services and we deliver them depending, again, on where it's delivered. But as soon as we get them, we give them.
An aide on my mom's floor, which is RP7, tested positive. Would they tell me if my mom was exposed to her? Mojdeh?
So it is darn near impossible to identify if that exposure occurred. So I would say that is really the philosophy behind quarantining the entire unit and monitoring 100% of the population.
Again, asking for the list of currently quarantined units, which I think we did. Also for Pastor, what about the residents who are unable to order for themselves? How can they get involved in the Seder and the kosher meal? Rabbi Noah, do you want to address that?
Yeah, so we, in terms of ordering for themselves, we went through We got a lot of requests and we checked with a lot of residents, and there's some that we knew were interested and we just put them down for them, both for the coach for Passover food and also for the Seder meal. I'm sorry, the question was once again about quarantined.
People who can't make that decision for themselves.
People who,
On special care neighborhood.
if they're on a special care neighborhood, then in some cases we have either checked with families or otherwise made the decision for them to give them the opportunity.
And I would just say, if you're in a situation where you're concerned about that, you could email the rabbi. I think his email is on the web.
Yeah.
And then he will make sure that that's attended to, for sure.
And and we can, so we have the foods available for the Seder, and then we also will be having the Seder service on channel 8 at 6:15.
My mom is not aware of any special programming on TV. Will a staff member turn the TV on for her? So she's on GP3. So the question is, do we help people to find on the right channel? And I think there's a greater focus than ever before. We try to respect people's wishes and desires. We're trying to discourage people from watching the news, not to hide the news, but to try and limit it to within reason, because it can be quite overwhelming. Having an in-house channel is quite a luxury. It's not perfect for everybody, but frankly, there's not a lot of other things on these days. There's no live sports, and there's just a lot of conversation about COVID. So Olivia's new show will be beamed live. We'll be broadcasted once a day. We try and program with movies and things we think they'll find interesting. So yes, we're going to make a larger than ever effort to make sure the TVs are turned to our in-house channel during this period of time. We already have, frankly. Next question, Olivia, you can read it on.
Sure. How many patients are presumed positive and how many staff are presumed positive as of today?
So we have definitively 12 residents that actually tested positive. They were our residents from various units that were sent out to the hospital and tested in the hospital at that point. We also have 22 positive residents on the COVID recovery unit that obviously came from the hospital. Staff members, I would say probably about 10 to 15 at this point.
Next question.
Somebody is asking, can you please repeat the GP3 RP4 move? Is GP3 the current COVID floor?
So GP3 is not the current COVID floor. That I do want to reassure you. That is GP lobby, and it is strictly for so-called resident patients who come from the hospital or that have been sent to us for COVID recovery. GP3 will become a COVID floor after the current residents who are living there as of today move off in the next 2 days.
And frankly, the purpose there is to have one building, as to do with entranceways and elevators, and trying to contain as much as we can. There's still a lot not known about this, and we're following all the CDC guidelines and Department of Health to try and make sure we're isolating and keeping people that might be contagious to others away from each other. So it's a real focus, aside from traditional regular social distancing, which we're doing. You'll see in this room, we're pretty far apart. You'll find that in all meetings and all settings with residents on floors, really keeping everybody as far apart as we possibly can. Next question.
When a resident is quarantined in their room, what if they have a roommate?
If somebody is symptomatic and their actual roommate is not symptomatic, we have made room changes. What we're trying to do and certainly do is quarantine or cohort symptomatic people with symptomatic people, non-symptomatic people with non-symptomatic people. So we have made a lot of room changes in that aspect, or we put the symptomatic person in a single room when we can.
Questions. I know you're short staffed, but water pitchers are needed in the rooms. Mother has told her that it's hard to get a pitcher filled with water. So, this is certainly a concern of many people, Mojdeh, in terms of very immediate needs, very simple things. I need some water, I need some attention. How can we reassure families that we're on top of these things? How do people let us know if they feel that they're concerned about these things? How do you respond to that question?
Actually, we do rounds. We definitely do rounds, and we identify, who needs what proactively. If it is at a time that anybody requires any assistance outside of those rounds, we certainly encourage the use of the call bell system so that you can alert somebody to come and fulfill those needs. But again, those rounds are done.
And I would just encourage, if you ever become aware of anything that's concerning to you, a mother, a father, a grandmother reaches out to you and says, hey, I'm concerned about something, we're all available to you, really basically 24 hours a day. You can reach us at the number that I posted, the 646-341-3096 is with me 24 hours a day. If you are concerned, you can email during hours. We put up a phone bank to expand between 9:30 and 3:30. We are trying as hard as we can to be responsive. So don't let those things sit. If you have concerns or questions, or your parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts, let us know so we can get up there and respond. Any patients test positive on the Rheingold building? Mojdeh, want to just?
We did have one patient test positive in that building.
If a resident were to go to the hospital to be tested for COVID and the person is positive, do they get treated at the hospital, or do they go back to the Hebrew home if there are symptoms that are not severe and are treated at the Hebrew home? I think we had that actually happen.
Yes, actually, for the ones that we actually identify, we have actually placed them on our COVID unit. So that's really the concept. We definitely want that designated area so that we can cohort, symptomatic people, positive people with the same population.
And we have had instances where somebody has gone out to the hospital and they've come back COVID positive, and they've been relocated instead of to their traditional floor to the recovery floor. That's for the obvious elements of trying to prevent the virus from spreading. The communication with the hospitals isn't always as great as we'd like it to be, but the goal is when they are looking at patients in the hospital to be only there if they are in need of an intensive care, often need to be on ventilators. We are asked to treat in place for people that are suspected to have the virus, and we're asked to manage people that have the virus. And again, just to reiterate, nursing homes have become a very common place for people with COVID. It's not exceptional that we have. It's quite average. All nursing homes, because of the overwhelming numbers and the hospital's inability to care, in some cases the need not for that level of care, nursing homes have become the landing spot for people with COVID. So it's not uncommon. It's becoming more common and will continue to be so as the numbers are as strong and as large as they are. We'll be asked to do more and more. It's not an option. People asked earlier today, why do a second floor? It looked like we're just sort of wandering into this business. It's not a business we sought or seek at all. It's a business that we were asked to by a governing body that really doesn't ask nicely. They basically assign you to do it. What we did differently than most is we picked our partner, and we got out in front of this and worked with New York Presbyterian, who's one of the finest hospital systems in the world, to work with them, to share their expertise. They share supplies with us, which is an important element. We haven't touched on supplies. We're fine on supplies, but you never can be too fine on supplies. And working with New York Presbyterian, who helps us with supplies, is an additional piece of comfort for us, because our staff, as you can imagine, and for the safety of resident communication of disease, want to wear the full PPEs, the personal protective equipment. So that's what we're doing to protect, but it's not an option for us. The person wants to thank us for efforts. Again, we're very grateful for all of the support we get. It is Wendy brings them to we have a management meeting every morning at 9:45, and Wendy will often read them, or they're posted on the boards. And really, it's the fuel that really keeps us going. It's a tough time. We're asking our staff to leave their homes and their families and to do what they can to help your families. It's the field we've all chosen. We don't ask to be thanked for it, but it is wonderfully to receive the adulation and the respect and appreciation for the families. It really is just an extra benefit of what we do. Next question. Of the 12 positive residents, how many have died? So, Mojdeh, how many deaths have we experienced from this?
We have had 5 confirmed deaths.
And again, just to be clear, if somebody were to pass away at the Hebrew home before they went to the hospital, we would never know if they died of COVID or not, because they don't do posthumous testing. The only way we would know if somebody died of COVID would be if they went to the hospital, were given a test, and then we were notified. So it's fair to say that the numbers are underreported, not only at the Hebrew home, but across the country, certainly in our field, I can tell you that the numbers are unfortunately higher than the numbers that are reported. Next question. Will patients that test positive with mild symptoms go to the COVID floor or remain on their floor? So if you have a resident who's got symptoms you suspect to be COVID, would you relocate them? Would you leave them where they are?
I would leave them where they are.
And what would make you determined to do something differently?
Honestly, it really depends on the situation. I think that if I had somebody go to the hospital and they tested positive in the hospital, and I had a definitive diagnosis, then I would feel much more apt to put them on a COVID recovery floor.
And if the symptomology became worse for the patient, if they became more than mildly symptomatic, would you move them then?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so again, we're asked to treat in place wherever possible. So that is the mantra we go with. Olivia, next question.
How is the quarantine going on RP6?
It's going well. It's going well. They're still within their quarantine period. I am analyzing and evaluating every single day, but so far so good.
Next question.
Somebody is asking about, is it good policy to be allowing 3 visitors at a time for 90-minute periods daily for patients who are gravely ill? Isn't that unnecessarily exposing people even with the safety measures in place?
So it's very, and you want to talk about how it's very unusual that somebody visits, right?
Sure, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
when someone is at end of life, there is a compassionate visit that is allowed. It is generally almost never for 90 minutes at a time. It's generally 2 people. We pretty much try to keep it to an hour. It's not every day. We also expect that they will wear a mask and protect themselves while they're in the room, but it is not 90 minutes for 3 visitors every day.
Next.
Somebody's asking about the video chat forum. I just want to remind everybody that if you would like to sign up for the FaceTime or video chats, there is a link on our website. But if there's something that you would like to schedule more frequently, you can communicate that when you're signing up for the app, and we have been able to schedule things with people. So it is best practice to use the link, but if you have any trouble, you can reach out to us.
And you can find that on the website. If you go to HebrewHome.org or RiverSpringHealth.org, that's our website. And right on the home page, right at the top, there's a button, to click for COVID information. So you click on that, and then the form to fill out for the video visit is right there.
How soon is family notified when a patient exhibits symptoms or is sent to the hospital?
If a patient or a resident is symptomatic and they need to be sent to the hospital, it is actually done in real time at transfer.
My mother eats puree food. How is this being handled for Passover?
So I need to just double check on that. I'm working very closely with Jennifer Flood, our director of dietitians, on all the Passover food. She's working closely with me to coordinate, and definitely we have notes made on when someone is having kosher Passover food and they have a dietary restriction such as chopped or pureed, and the note has been made, and I'm gonna just check in with her about what we're doing for that.
Is the staff explaining these new changes to the residents daily? If needed, it's hard for some seniors to adjust. Yeah, we are. It depends on the changes, but as far as whatever changes are happening onto their neighborhoods, or as far as their activities that are taking place, all of our staff are doing as much as possible to make sure that we can keep in communication with the residents, whether that's using our monitors that we have on all the neighborhoods, or physically going around and letting the residents know the changes.
I have one correction, and I want to thank you, Marcy, if you're listening. RP7 is actually 1478. I must have given you RP6. So the extension for RP7 is 1478.
What is the app for the facility? Do we have an app, Wendy?
We do not have an app at this time.
The Sagely Family.
Perhaps.
Oh, okay.
If you're asking about the Sagely Family app to find out about what activities are taking place, you can send me an email at olivia.cohen@hebrewhome.org, but that's the only app that we currently have.
Can we set up an Amazon Echo in the room so we can video chat at will? This is hard not to see a loved one when the floor is on quarantine. And you want to talk about video and how that's not allowed in the,
Right now, we are not utilizing the Amazon Echo. There are some issues with that centered around privacy and HIPAA in terms of staff walking in and out. I know there's a lot of discussion about that all over, but the video chat is what we're using with it, iPad. We have been, the interest in video chatting has been tremendous, understandably so. So we're trying very hard to attend to as many as we can, keeping the schedule we try to set, but we're doing the best we can with that.
Olivia?
How many current patients are in isolation because they're presumed positive?
Right now I have about 10.
Is New York Presbyterian now a part of RiverSpring Health?
No, that'd be actually probably the opposite direction. We are an affiliate of, so we have a clinical affiliation with New York Presbyterian Healthcare System, which means we share some of the learning and expertise. We do best practices. We're completely independent. We have our own board of directors. We're not connected to them in a way other than a clinical way of being able to share expertise, to share patients, to share technology. So it's what I would call a light affiliation, but it's an important affiliation for us. We take it with great pride. We work also with Montefiore's healthcare system as well. But these COVID recovery floors, telemedicine, and some of the large scale things we do, we found them to be the best partner, and certainly their willingness and ability to share equipment with us is a big piece. The staff's greatest concern you can imagine that we deal with is having proper protective equipment. It's quite frightening to read and see in the papers and the news, the number of healthcare professionals that have become sick for caring for people. So when they see doctors, nurses, and people are getting sick, they want to make sure, and we want to make sure they're protected as best as possible. Mojdeh's done training. We make sure we have all kinds of supplies that are needed and appropriate, not oversupplied. We don't give supplies that aren't needed. And sometimes families, sometimes the staff get confused between what they need or what they don't need. Maybe, Mojdeh, you could explain what a proper equipment is for somebody providing care to somebody, and just so people understand the issue I'm dealing with.
Yes. Again, when anybody is symptomatic, or even if they're actually positive from diagnostic testing like we have in the recovery unit, personal protective equipment per CDC, per Department of Health guidelines is inclusive of a surgical mask, a face shield, a gown, and gloves. And when they are providing direct patient care, they are utilizing that personal protective equipment. Once that direct patient care is completed, they take it all off and throw it away and wash their hands. If they're just walking around the unit, they're wearing a mask, which is appropriate. Actually, everybody's wearing a mask. So that's really the difference.
Thanks. Okay, so we want to thank you. I think we've answered all the questions, unless in the next minute or so you click on the app. I want to thank you for your questions. More importantly, we want to thank you for your support and your trust during this incredibly challenging and difficult time. We don't end the webinar by saying, we'll see you next week. We end by saying, if you need us for anything between now and then, you'll write to us or email us or text us, and then we'll get back to you in real time as much as we can. But know that the staff that are sitting here tonight have been here for almost 12 hours. They do it with tremendous passion and interest and support, as does all the people who are working with us and for us. They're really all hands-on. This has been an incredible team effort, a very dedicated group of people that are doing all they can under really incredibly challenging times. And we know, if we're not saying it, we certainly know that this is an incredible ordeal for all of you, and incredibly scary and frustrating for our residents. And we're trying to bridge that gap for you as best as we can through technology, through the work that we're doing, through the one-to-one visits. And we appreciate your support during this time. Thank you and good night.